Good morning, Martin. How we doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, good, Dave. Good to see you. Yeah, everything's well.
Can
Looking
you
forward to
believe
it.
we were just saying before we started recording? Can you believe it was August 2020, the last time we spoke to each other?
Oh, it's just crazy, mate. I don't know whether that is that a sign of getting old, or
I know.
have we got busy lives, or I don't know.
I know. Obviously, a lot's probably happened since that time over just under 3 years. But August 2020, we were just working out that there must have been a circuit breaker within all the lockdown restrictions that allowed us to meet face to face. If you could just fill us in briefly, mate, on what you've been up to, generally speaking, and are you seeing any impact from that lockdown throughout the community at the moment?
Majorly. So obviously, when we spoke last time, um, sort of we stepped up really to meet the demand, and we got involved a lot with the food banks, because all the coaching and all the support had to be online. And I know obviously you became really busy in that period because
Mm-hmm.
we were all doing stuff from our offices at home. Um, but yeah, it's a bit of a strange one really, because we knew this was going to come, and I sort of predicted that there was going to be a big fallout. I know one of the big topics today for this podcast is going to be addiction.
Yeah.
Um, and that basically, the addiction is sort of like it was explained to me by a pal of ours, Dave Sheridan, about having a corridor, and my corridor is addiction and recovery, because that's my journey. But
Mm-hmm.
then the rooms off the corridor, have expanded um, as time's gone. So it's personal development, it's lifestyle management, um, you know, um, discussing mental health, and just basically creating a safe space and a bit of a forum where
Yeah.
people feel safe to share. That's been massive. Um, we've done what's new since we last spoke. I've done my peer to peer support training, which has been really good. Um, and what's quite interesting is, for me anyway, is that the NHS are now recognizing that lived experience is as beneficial as academic qualifications,
Yeah, of course,
um,
definitely.
which I think we've always known.
Mm-hmm.
Because the likes of the addiction fellowships have been around since the book of Alcoholics Anonymous was written in the 1930s.
Wow.
So that was peer to peer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was people who've been through it. But obviously, it just never got parceled up like that. And I think the benefits of the way we've changed, um, as a society, is amazing, and it's really exciting for me that the likes of Health England
Mm-hmm.
are actually now realizing that and recognizing that, because it was a bit of a I always felt it was a bit taboo in the past. um you know
Yeah, I
so
think the term flying around at the moment is social prescribing in it. So the doctors and the NHS and GPs and that are now, like you said, more open to um, prescribing other, like you said, through that lived experience, other organisations that can help individuals deal with whatever issues they're dealing with before they start dishing out prescriptions and medication and all that. So yeah, social prescribing is something that's been on my radar for a few years, working at me job that I had previously over in Lee, and that's going to be massive for you, and especially Dave Sheridan and that moving forward, isn't it?
definitely, and I think to have that door opened with the NHS and with the GPs is incredible. And I think after we've spoken to a few GPs, and a few people within the health service, it's such a welcomed initiative for them, because they've been really frustrated in the past because their services are stretched to the max. And they're saying to people, well, what do you need? Well, I think to speak to somebody would be good. And they're like, right, okay, we can get you in front of a counsellor, but it's going to be like 3 months on Tuesday,
Yeah,
because their services are just so stretched. So to for the GP to have the confidence to be able to refer somebody to the likes of the organisations that we're going to be working with is huge. And we can see people straight away, because as you don't know what a lot can happen in 12 or 13 weeks.
yeah, of course it can.
We,
Yeah,
we, we, we know what the worst case is of poor mental health, and best case, people just stumble along and you know that they're not enjoying their lives and they're just existing. So yeah, really, really exciting. And as I say, a lot of that won't be addiction. But I think because of my journey, that you know that word get banned. I hate saying journey, but sometimes it's difficult to use another word.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
Mine was more of a, I would say, a roller coaster ride than a journey. I don't think Alton Towers would be installing it.
Yeah.
And I often joke and say, Tarantino wouldn't be making the movie either. Um, but I think it's like what it's done is I'm so thankful for it. And I've spoken to a few people about this recently. And a guy questioned it and he said, You're grateful for it. And I'm thankful. And I was like, yeah, because it's made me what I am today.
Mhm.
And, I love the old sayings. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think what I have been through has brought me to where I am today and who I am today. And that's what I try and get across to clients as much as I can. I mean, my little line on the back of my business cards is to live in the past is to die in the present.
Yeah.
And I think that's massive. Um,
So elaborate a little bit on that for us, Martin, then for people who are listening. Elaborate on that little saying on the back of your business card
well,
then.
I just think like what we tend to do as human beings, we tend to dwell a lot on what's gone before. And it took me years to realize that I can't fix what happened yesterday or last year or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but I can change what happens in a minute. I can
Hmm.
change the next 5 minutes and I can change the next 5 years and I can change the rest of my life. Now, that seems quite simple and common sense to somebody who's got their life in order and what we talk in coaching about being aligned, having your body and
Yeah.
your mind in the same place, which we have this morning because we said we were going to start at 10. And we did, apart from a couple of little technical hitches. We were there ready with a brew, a 5-2.
Yeah.
If I 15 years ago, um, you know, I wouldn't. My life was that chaotic, and some of the people that were speaking to like were that chaotic. It wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have even had the conversation. So, I think what what I like to get across to people is don't don't drown yourself in all the stuff that happened before because it's just there's nothing to gain.
Hmm.
There's nothing to gain by dwelling on the past because it's just
It's
it,
done,
it,
isn't it? It's over.
oh,
Yeah.
and there'll be issues that you need to deal with. Don't get me wrong, but nothing's that bad. There's nothing that can't be talked through, and obviously there's things where like if people have committed major crimes, and they've done some bad things, which you do come up against.
Hmm.
Um, that's got to be dealt with. It might have to be dealt with, legally and custodially. But it might have to be dealt with. Just saying, well, listen, that was that version of you at that time, but it's not you now, or it might be
Yeah.
you now. It might still be you, but you're talking about it, and guess what? If you talk about it and work through it and strip it back, it can improve. And I'm living proof of that.
Yeah. I mean, you can beat yourself up too much as well. I mean, some of the lowest points of my life and the mistakes I've made growing up, as we've all done, made mistakes and made poor decisions. I'm kind of over them now. Do you know what I mean? I do look back every now and again and think, oh my God, that was stupid, that, but I don't dwell on it too much because it can stunt you moving forward as well, can't it? If you're constantly, like you were saying, Martin, dwelling on the past, then that is gonna put barriers up to you moving forward and improving yourself and all personal development that me and you are very much into. You've got to find a way of drawing a line under that past, haven't you?
Yeah, 100%. Like I was working with somebody and they were like the lives which they just gone right off the rails and he was beating himself up over a relationship that had gone on 20 years before. And I was like, where's the girl now? And she was like, she lives in London. Well, what's she doing? she's a film director. Right, okay. Is she married? And yeah, she's married. She's got three lovely kids. I said, okay, don't take this the wrong way, but you think she's lying awake, worrying about an argument that she had with you, 20 years ago? And he was laughing like, and he was like, no. I was like, mate, you need to move past it. You
Yeah.
haven't killed anybody. You've made a couple of bad calls, which we do. We're humans. We're never going to get it 100%
No.
right all the time.
How much
And
do you think that comes down to, like, holding on to that identity? So some people like to, and I'm not saying this guy in that instance that you just spoke about is doing this, but some people like to play like a victim, and it's very hard for them to feel empowered and such. So how much of that do you think is people just holding on to identities that they've had previously? They maybe don't know who they are personally, and because maybe bad things have happened to them, they identify now with being that victim, and it's very hard for them to see themselves as empowered. Do you think that comes down to it as well? That
yeah, yeah,
identity.
yeah, definitely. It's a big element of it. But what we've got to do, as mentors or coaches or whatever role we're in, is to explain to them that they're a different person today and they're in a different stage of their lives. And I think sometimes when you're living a bit chaotically, or your mind's racing, or you've got negative self-talk, sometimes it takes the likes of us to say, hey, hang on, like I'm gonna have another saying here, the wood's for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the middle of something, it seems the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And whatever's happened to you in the past, it's the worst thing. And for people like us, and what I love about what we do and what I get to do on a daily basis is to say to people, listen, nothing is that bad. Anything that you've done is not that bad. Look at the positives. Look at what you're doing now. Celebrate the small wins.
Yeah.
Celebrate the fact that you're sat in front of me and we're talking about it. Forget about everything else. If that's the base level, if that's the start, then let's celebrate, because this is the beginning of changing that. And
Yeah.
that's what I love. Like, we wrote, Dave and I wrote a course called Progression, Not Perfection. And people talk about moving from A to B. Do you know what I mean? I'm in front of people that I want them to even consider leaving A.
Yeah.
Just the thought of maybe leaving A in a year's time sometimes is enough. You
Definitely.
know,
Yeah. And that point from zero to A can have multiple steps in between that as well, doesn't it? A doesn't have to be like the first rung on the ladder. The smallest incremental step to get to A, just them little wins in it, like you said. So it can be as small as you need it to be for you to make progress.
definitely, and gauge you on your own development, and your own mentality. And it's not one size fits all, is it? So and that's the other exciting thing about what we do. No 2 days are the same,
Mm-hmm.
because you never know who you're going to get in front of you. But we, fortunately, for the people that we do get in front of, we see them as human beings. What we do isn't gender or postcode
Yeah.
specific, or is it, or class specific, or race, or anything at all. It's a human being. Sexuality. You're a human being who has feelings and has emotions. And I think what I love doing is just giving people a platform to be able to openly trust somebody,
Yeah.
and have a discussion, and that's it. Now, whether that's around addiction, whether it can be around anything at all. Um, obviously my story, what was addiction, from a young age, and decisions and people who I had around me led me into situations that became unmanageable.
Mm-hmm.
But that gave me the tools, um, to be able to see how you can work through, adversity, and low parts of your life. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we bring to the party, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So going back to what you were saying before about 15 years ago, you wouldn't have been, the erratic behavior, chaotic lifestyle, you wouldn't have been like organized enough to set up this kind of Zoom call that we're on this morning. Is that, we'll get into timelines in a minute, was the personality that led to you becoming addicted on various substances and alcohol, or is that the environment that led to it? I'm always fascinated by, is there a person who's personality wise more inclined to become addicted to something, or is it completely down to the environment and the individuals and where you put yourself? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does, mate, and it's a great question. And we could probably record another 25 podcasts on this, and I could bore you to death. And it's a very, very thought provoking question for me. And I'll try and justify it, within a couple of minutes. But I think I don't really know. I just think that I personally believe it's a combination of situations you get yourself into at a young age. But is the stem of it, does it stem from emotional feelings, and how do you know? It's a very fine line between, are you just taking drugs when you're 16 and 17 because your mates are doing it, and when you've taken it you enjoy the feeling of it, or are you taking it because you were bullied a little bit in school, and if you're taking the drugs with the 16 and the 17-year-olds who were seen to be the cool ones and the ones who were going out and partying, does that make you fit in? Or are you taking them to block something out that happened when you were 7 or 8 that you haven't dealt with? It's a real can of worms, that.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to the individual. Whether you ever 100% get to the bottom of the reason, I don't know. What I do know is, with putting procedures in place, and going through certain elements of work, then you can get to the fact, you can find solutions, if general solutions, really, if that makes sense. I know, because I know with me, I took my first drug. I started drinking alcohol when I was 12, and I think we've spoke before, Irish Catholic background, big parties, family parties. Someone gave me a can of cider when I was 12. I liked the way it made me feel. Continued to drink, excessively. And then obviously born in 72, 1988, I was 16, and 89, 90 was the dance scene, in Liverpool, Quadrant Park,
Yeah.
The state. And someone gave me an ecstasy tablet, and, wow, that was just like, that worked for me. And because of, obviously, the environment of being in with the alcohol, I thought drugs and alcohol were okay, because all my family did it. I realise now, majority, quite a big number of them were functioning addicts, which I didn't realise at the time. I just thought that's what everybody did, and then all my mates took drugs, so I thought that's what you did.
Yeah.
So, and then with regards, like, is it your personality? People talk about addictive personalities again. There must be a bit of that, but it's a tough one, that, mate, because, like, once you start, like, I didn't have an off switch. So is that part of my personality? Probably, that excessive addictive behavior.
Yeah.
But what triggered it initially could be, a combination of things. I know that's probably a bit vague, that, but it's probably the best way I can describe it.
No, I get you, and it was a bit of a rhetorical question anyway. I kind of know that it's difficult to say whether it's nature, nurture, whether your personality had more to do with it than the environment you put yourself in. But I just wanted to get your kind of take on it. At what point did you realize that it was getting out of hand?
You know what? It was a weird one with me, and I think this is happening a lot. I'm seeing a lot of this now, and I'm relating, and seeing myself in a lot of clients that I'm getting in front of me, because there's a massive wave of people in addiction that haven't acknowledged it. And I think you asked the question before about what have you seen any changes or what's happened. I think what's starting to come over the hill now is a product of COVID and lockdown. And I think there's a lot of undiagnosed addictive behaviours out there with a whole range of the community, not just at the at the level sometimes that we find ourselves in the homeless hubs and the shelters. I'm talking about people in business, high achievers.
I think that's the big. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. I think that's the big eye opener for me. That particularly growing up in St Helens, when someone refers to someone as a drug addict, immediately the stereotype goes to a heroin addict, homeless heroin addict, drinking cans of whatever, skull soup on the street. It doesn't enter your mind, for me personally anyway, it didn't at a younger age. I didn't assume there was people just living lives, going to work, maybe successful lives on the face of it, who were dealing with addiction. That's something that's been more eye-opening for me as I was starting to get into like my early 20s, late 20s, early 30s, seeing people who could be considered addicts, but who had on the face of it normal, regular lives.
Yeah. That's it. You're spot on. And just because somebody's earning £100,000 a year and they've got two top of the range cars on the path of the 4-bedroomed detached in a leafy suburb doesn't mean they're not an addict, and doesn't mean they haven't got addiction problems. Do you know what I mean? That's it. And but doesn't that prove the importance of the stuff that we do? Because in the past, the stuff that we're doing now just wouldn't have been accessible. I mean, I'm sure you had but before COVID, I thought Zoom was a song by Fat Larry's band. You know what I mean?
I don't even know who that is. I don't even know who that is.
I'm showing you age. My granddad told me about it, but I've only thought about that whenever you can have that if you want. But no, we wouldn't have been doing this, would we? There's no way we'd have been doing this. So when this goes out to whatever platforms it's going on, somebody will watch this who will relate to this, and power of what we do. And sometimes we need to recognize, because we're not great at this, we need to recognize how good it is what we're doing, and the power of what we're doing, especially as guys of a certain age. We work right across all the sectors, and I know this has been widely discussed, and there are a lot of men's mental health groups, because as blokes, especially in the north, we're not great, are we? We haven't had a reputation of being great.
No, we're getting better. We're getting better at discussing and opening up a little bit more, but there's still a stigma in there surrounding working class into sports, for you to open up and talk about your feelings and that like that.
Pull your socks up. We've spoke about this, man up and all that. We're still fighting against all that, but we're making massive leaps, and we are. And for me to be getting invited through the work that I do with Dave and Maximum Edge, for me to get invited into high schools and sports clubs to speak to 14, 15, 16-year-old lads and girls for that early intervention, mate, that wouldn't have happened not that long ago.
It's amazing.
I'm even going back. I'm even only going back sort of 5-6 years. It wouldn't have happened because the barriers were up, and organisations were frightened to let you in, especially about topics around like knife, gun crime, addiction, because if they were letting you in, they felt as if they were admitting they had a problem. That's changed now. That's changed now. They see it now as part of education almost.
That's massive, isn't it? So I know if anyone wants to go and listen to the previous episode with Martin, it's on the Incremental Gains podcast, and we did touch on kind of your background a little bit. And one aspect of it was you worked in nightclubs. I'm right in saying that, Anna. You worked in the club scene in Liverpool. How bad did the drug take and the alcohol get at that point? Because obviously you're in and amongst it, in that there's no real getting away from the drugs and alcohol if you work in that background as well. How bad was it getting? And I don't ask this to kind of glorify things, but I just want to get kind of a picture of how bad
Yeah, yeah,
things were getting.
yeah. Well, see, the thing is, the other thing is, which is important, is that it doesn't all happen. It doesn't happen, overnight. Um,
Sorry, mate. Just carry on. I'm just going to change cameras. My camera's gone off.
yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, and this is the thing. You don't necessarily have to fall from grace, within a couple of weeks. Um, mine was a real gradual thing, and as I said before, I was like, I grew up, and the dance team was on, but I had another part of my life as well. I was an entertainer, so from when I
Mhm.
was 17 years of age, I went off like singing and performing around like cabaret clubs in Northwest, and alcohol was just drink was there. I
Yeah.
grew up in the in the club scene, not just the dance club scene. So I'd go and do that, when I wasn't gigging, and if I was gigging, I was also in a working man's club where everybody was drinking. So I didn't, you know what I mean? I was it was all around me. But when I hit me rock bottom in 2009, I joked that, I joke and say, I said before, Tarantino wouldn't make the movie, and it was as bad as it could get.
Yeah.
I had drug dealing around me, which I was aware of. I was licensee of a 2 o'clock restaurant. So if drug dealers know that the guy who's managing the restaurant is a drug addict, then it's the perfect storm, isn't it? Because they were supplying me and they were selling it as well. So I got embroiled with that. And it was scary.
Yeah.
The bar that I was working in was in an area where there was gang issues. There was a lot of violence, which I was exposed to and involved with because I was running. I was running. I had the doorman as well, and yeah, it was horrendous. And when I look back, and reflect on it, it was as bad as it could get, really.
Yeah.
Um,
What
you
did your
know,
days
from
look like at that point, Martin? We talked about a chaotic lifestyle. What did your days primarily look like? Was it get up? What
Yeah,
was kind of the routine?
yeah. Well, near the end, sort of like certainly for the last 12 months, I couldn't function without cocaine, or alcohol. So for a full year, in the end, I was taking. It started off what most people will do. They were taking drugs. I hate that word, but recreationally, or they think they're taking them recreationally, and taking them socially. As guys will go out, they'll have 4 or 5 pints. Somebody will produce some drugs, and they'll take them. In the end, I was doing it the other way around. I was taking the drugs just to basically get me going, and
Yeah.
then the drink would follow. So my days for the last 12 months were just absorbed by thinking how I was going to get my next drug, or when I was going to be able to have my next drink, and I tried to sort of spin plates to keep things going, try and keep my job going, try and keep my family around me, try and keep my driving license, you know, try and speak to my family every now and again, try and
Mm-hmm.
pay me debts to the dealers, try and not get myself involved in any sticky situations. Managed to do that for 12 months, and then the last 4 weeks, it just all came, round, crushing down around my ears. And that was my rock bottom, and my rock bottom was owed a lot of money to the dealers, was threatened with serious violence.
Mm-hmm.
Was just about to lose my job. My missus and my kids were looking for accommodation because we were just about to lose the house. The house was about to get repossessed. My car got repossessed. My mum was trying to get hold of me to tell me, she was really worried about me, and my family were worried about me, and you know, that was it. And thankfully for me, I found my rock bottom, and I managed to start again. But that had all stemmed from me being 12 and 13, picking that first can of beer up,
Yeah.
and it taking me right through my teenage years. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say to your point then when you finished off that people might listen to this and go, well, that's not going to happen to me. I only have like a bag of beak on a weekend or whatever with a few pints, like, and I'll ask you in a minute why you hate the word. Was it recreational? You hate that word. We'll touch on that in a minute. My question was, people will be listening to this hopefully thinking, well, that's not going to be me because I only have a bag on a weekend when I got my mates. Through the week, I'm fine. How does it get from that point to the end where
Yeah, well,
you're hitting rock bottom?
again, I think that comes down to personal circumstances. But the thing is, isn't there much more of a chance of you getting to that low level when you're just taking the weekend and you think you've got it under control? Isn't If something happens in your life, if you hit a bump in the road, the danger is if you've got access to that and that's part of what you do socially and recreationally, and which we said we'll go back to that word recreationally of a weekend. Is there a danger that if something happens on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, you lose a loved one, or you have murder with your missus, or something happens in work, someone annoys you in work, or your kids are playing up, or something happens? Is there a possibility you'll go, do you know what, sod this, I'm going out for a beer? You
Yeah.
know, there's a midweek game on, there's a Champions League game on. I know there's going to be a few lads in the local. I'm going to go down. Sod this. I'm hitting myself to struck button. I'll throw a sickie tomorrow. You go down, you have a few beers. Next thing, you've had a few beers. You're on the phone. The dealer's turns up. So it's now a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and you've had your cocaine, and that blocks everything out. And you think that's all right, that. And then does that slip into like a Thursday now because you're off on the Friday? That's the danger. But apart from that, if you're just taking it a weekend and you're taking it recreationally, then is that still you being the best version of yourself?
Yeah.
Just because it's the weekend and it's recreational because it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the circle you're in are doing it, is that right? Is that you being the best dad, the best husband, the
Yeah.
best employee, the best son,
Yeah.
best neighbour? Probably not, because when you're getting up on the Sunday morning and you've only had 4 or 5 hours sleep and you're rough as toast, and your kids want to go swimming, or they want to go and walk the dog in the woods, or they want to do something, are you going to do that? Probably not. If you do it, are you going to be, as we spoke before, aligned? Is your mind and body going to be in the same place?
Yeah.
Probably not. So you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be categorically everything, wheels falling off the full hitting rock bottom like I have. And hopefully there will be people listening to this who might be taking a look inside themselves or having a look in the mirror and going, well, am I being the best dad I can be? I'm sure to God. No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Am I being the best husband? Does my family deserve more? Does my boss deserve more? Has he stood by me? You know, should I be better on a Monday or a Tuesday? That's the stuff I'm as much
Mm.
interested in.
I think going back to the analogy that you used at the beginning about that corridor with doors off the corridor, if you're walking down your corridor in your life and maybe drugs are around you, maybe it's something you do again recreationally on the weekend, and you're maybe dealing with high stress, so you're walking through your corridor, but you're dealing with a high stress situation, or something in your life just implodes, like an argument with your missus or some whatever you touched on before, Martin, like a bad conversation with your boss at work, or being risk and mid redundant, and your coping strategy, or you've got access to it as you're walking down your corridor, you can get access to the cocaine or whatever drug of choice. Then is all these little doors off the corridor in it, and your coping strategy is to go down that route. Then that's gonna, yeah. I've never thought of that analogy before, but it's really good on that walking down the corridor. Whatever state of mind you're in on that corridor, and all these doors, depending on what happens in your life, can open off the back of it.
100%, and different circumstances and different times in your life will probably make you more attractive to certain doors.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
But also the thing is alcohol is, for me is massive, especially now, because again, I hope there's people watching this who may look at themselves and question themselves and say, well, am I comfortable having that bottle of wine of a night? I'm still getting up for work the next day. I'm a bit groggy, but is that have I slipped into a little bit of a rut where a glass has turned into two glasses and two glasses have turned into a bottle? And sometimes because it's a Thursday or a Friday, the
Mm-hmm.
second bottle's getting open. But it's all right because my missus is having a gin, but she's having a thing. We're only watching Yellowstone
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Netflix. That's what we do when we watch Netflix. We have a glass of wine. You
How do
know,
you start to become aware of these things then? Because um, so if we back up a little bit, I through COVID, probably the same as everybody else, I not abused alcohol to where I couldn't function, but I enjoyed a few more drinks than I should have done. Do you know what I mean? I was going through probably at the height of like COVID and lockdown, a box of Bud a week, and maybe like almost a bottle of whiskey, just because there was nothing else to do. But I felt fine. I was still training. I was in the gym and all that, but I was drinking excessively for my own standards. So then once we started getting back to normality again, me and my wife both like said, right, that's it. We're gonna not drink on the head. And last year we ended up going like 6 months teetotal, not drinking at all for 6 months, and we felt amazing off the back of it. Slowly it crept back in, and at Christmas I was fortunate enough for my jiu-jitsu club to go full time, so that's my full time job now, which has created a lot of space for me during the day to work on businesses, do projects like this with you. But when you have space and time on your hands, then if you're not aware enough of it, these things can creep in. So the alcohol intake of an evening was getting a little bit more because I didn't have to get up early in the morning to go to work. Classes are of an evening. And I was aware enough that this was not becoming an issue, but I was drinking a little bit more than I should have been. So I was able to knock it on the head. And my question is, Martin, like, how do people start to build up this awareness that maybe one bottles of wine is going to two bottles of wine of an evening just because the missus is doing it, then they think it's okay to do it. The missus thinks the husband's okay to do it, so I'll do it. Two bottles of wine creeps up. How does someone become a bit more self-aware that these things might end up escalating?
yeah, I think the biggest thing and the biggest word that I use when I think about it is honesty. Now, people's interpretation or the meaning of honesty normally thinks it's being honest with somebody else. So being honest with your family or the people around you. But I want to speak to people about being honest with yourself. And we talk about like what you see in the mirror. I'm saying to people all the time when I'm coaching, are you being the best version of John, Billy, Mary, Julie? And can you honestly, hand on your heart, say that drinking a bottle of wine or drinking 6 bottles of Bud and 4 Scotch as an intelligent middle-aged human being is that a good life choice? You know, and if you are being brutally honest with yourself, you're probably going to say, I know it's not, but I don't really know how to stop it. Now, different people will use different tools to stop that. And we talk about people and places a hell of a lot. So I'm not saying leave your missus because she's having a glass of wine, but, you know, change it up a little bit, do something a bit different. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
when the spring comes or the nights are a bit lighter. I know you're massive on outdoors, and some of the the stuff
Yeah,
that you do, mate. You should be really proud of with your fitness and promoting the outdoors and exercise. It doesn't have to be running a marathon, as we all know. It could just be walking half a mile or something,
yeah,
but just getting out and get a bit of fresh air and mixing it up. So instead of binging on Netflix and watching 4 of them, you know, watch one or watch two, but before it or after it, go and have a walk or go out and do something else or
yeah.
find an interest. Do a jigsaw. I don't know, but just
What we do is what I try and do is I kind of use sitting down watching Netflix as a reward for something. So if
yeah,
you've done something worthwhile during that day, maybe you've gone out for a run, maybe you've I don't know took on some extra work at work and you've finished a project or something. Use that Netflix not as it's what we do every evening, but as a little reward. Right, I worked hard today. I'm going to sit and watch a film tonight with my missus or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I get that. I get that because I mean the amount of people I speak to now who are like, and it is dangerous like Netflix in it because like that next episode comes up and it
It's
just
the algorithms in it, social media algorithms, Netflix
mate,
algorithms. You might like this next.
Yeah, yeah,
Got you
yeah,
hooked, mate. Got you hooked.
yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah.
and then I know people who are like, this is another mad one, talking about like addictive behaviors. I know people who are struggling a bit with it. They're not sitting watching Netflix and getting drunk, but they're binging it and they're looking at each other and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and they're still watching.
Yeah.
Should we watch one more? And then they've got to be up
Yeah.
at 7. And they're up at 7 and they're groggy the next day. They haven't got a hangover. So there's another example of addictive behaviors and we're not talking about drugs and alcohol. But so what we're talking about is being aware, being aware of getting into little ruts and little alarm bells ringing. You asked me the question, what do you do? Well, what you do is you be honest with yourself and you look at it and you go, this isn't right. We're normalizing this, and it isn't normal. So we need to do something about it. We either need to talk to somebody about it, or we need to discuss it as a couple, or as friends, or as family members, and we need to change it up because we're not being the best version of ourselves by doing this. Because if we're tired, or we're hungover, or we're still drunk, or we're still under the influence of drugs, we're not going to perform to the best of our ability. And I think that's a real generalization, but I think it's a mega summary, and that's
Yeah.
what I use it. I use it a lot because there's nowhere to hide. If you
Mm-hmm.
say to somebody, "Are you, in your opinion, are you being the best version of you?" and you have an honest enough relationship, is that word again, honesty. If you have an honest enough relationship with them, and they go, "Yeah," I go, "Really?" And you go, "Maybe not." Go,
Mm-hmm.
right, okay. Are you prepared to do anything about it? Yeah, I am. Okay. Are you going to initiate it? Yeah, I am. Like what you just said, I'm going to use it as a reward if done something good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if they go, well, no, I don't see it as a problem and I haven't got an issue. Well, that's a completely different topic because if they're not prepared to deal with it, at that point or at that junction, then there's not a lot we people like you and I can do unless they're prepared to initiate it. I know that's a whole other podcast, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um, you know that's the thing, mate. People have got to want it, and to be fair, on the whole, I think people do want to be the best version of themselves. You know,
Yeah.
wha-
I mean,
and I,
people with young children, obviously, that's a massive motivator. You can look yourself in the mirror and say, "Am I the best version? Am I the best parent I could be?" To set an example to my kids, then that, yeah, like you said, honesty, and it's massive,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, huge. And I think you have got to be aware um, of what's going on around you. And as I said, go back to what I said originally. It's easy for us to say that because we've more or less got our house in order. You know, a big part of our job, in my opinion, is for us to allow people, you know, that sort of like access to the tools to make them changes. I think that's a massive power that we have and something that we should be proud of.
So a question that's just coming to me then. Two questions actually. One, is there such a thing as a gateway drug? In your opinion, is there such a thing as a gateway drug? People start off, I don't know, smoking a bit of weed, and that will escalate, or like you touched on, alcohol was a big part of your story, wasn't it? Is there such thing as a gateway drug?
Yeah, I think alcohol would have to be up there, wouldn't it? Certainly with like you're quite a bit younger than me, but sort of like round about our generations, I think alcohol is. I think it's changing. I think it has changed. I think cannabis is huge now. But
That was part of me. That was part of my reason for asking that question was um, due to it being legalized in a lot of parts of the world at the moment. People assume that yeah, it's okay to do it now because it's legal in America or whatever. That might not necessarily lead on to another harder drug. If you know what I mean, that was my reason for asking that question. Like,
Yeah, I think again it comes down to individuals. The amount of
mm,
young people, like the experience I've had with young people who are smoking this like strong strain of cannabis now, and the skunk or whatever they call it. There's probably a chance they won't move on to harder drugs they're not necessarily going to end up being heroin addicts or crack addicts
Hmm.
because they've had a split. But but that isn't necessary. That you would think that, well, that's okay. Well, it's not, because the strength of the cannabis that they're smoking, it psychotically and everything else, mentally and physically, is as bad as any of them drugs that that you would normally think may be harder drugs.
Hmm.
What is a hard drug? What they all have the same effect, don't they?
Yeah, yeah,
They all create unmanageable lifestyles and have effect on your health and your well-being.
hmm,
So that, I've never thought of it like that. But what is a hard and a soft? What's the definition of a hard drug and a soft drug? Is having a case of bud and a bottle of whiskey harder than having a line of coke, or I don't know.
yeah, yeah. No, I've not got the answer to that one. Difficult as well in it now because I mean, a lot of people are understanding the dangers of alcohol, obviously because of the big thing it being legal and easy accessible. Compared to the argument is that smoking cannabis relaxes you a little bit more. I mean, I'm not even to have that conversation with you. That's for a different podcast, but it's obviously difficult for people in it to make these decisions now because alcohol's so easy accessible. You're getting more and more promotion of cannabis being what's the right word? Being you're not as aggressive when you're on it. You're not going to be going out causing disruptive behavior on it in the
Yeah,
streets. It's difficult, isn't it? Difficult.
yeah, which makes it more makes it more acceptable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really, possibly. But I think I think really, and to be honest, I haven't thought about this for a while. So thanks for sort of bringing this into my head. I think a massive summary really is to say that just be honest with yourself, and just take a step back. Just take a step
Hmm.
back and have a look and see what you're doing, and can you make any small improvements, and are you prepared to make any small improvements? And I think that's huge, Dave. To
Yeah.
depend, and that doesn't matter at what stage you're at in your life. I think if everybody is honest enough, there's nobody who's absolutely got it nailed. I don't care what they say, and if they do say it, that they're lying. Is there anybody who's got absolutely everything boxed off and everything in line? And I really don't. I don't believe
Yeah. No.
that there is. And we speak a lot. And again, this is another podcast. The work that we've done in sport. There's always another level, isn't there? So I
Hmm.
know with what you do, you know, you you may be inclined to think that a top athlete doesn't need personal development, but they do, because if they're striving to be the best at what they do, are they neglecting something else? Or if they're not, is there another level? Well, we know there is,
Yeah.
because nobody's ever going to find that level of perfection. If you're a footballer, and you've scored 50 goals a season, and you score 60, is there something you could change that would make you score more? Or do you
I
know what I
know.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's just a case of people looking at it, whatever level they're at, whatever stage they're at. And anybody listening to this, whether they're sofa surfing or whether they're the CEO of a blue chip company, you know, is there anything in your life that you feel as if you could change, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or something in your life? Is there anything that you can change that would improve it? And if there is, open your mind for learning and for sharing,
Hmm.
and from accessing, some of the work that we're proud to be involved with. And I think that's it.
Yeah. So if someone is listening to this, watching it, however they're consuming this podcast, and maybe so two scenarios, maybe they have hit their rock bottom and they're like, I just don't know where to turn. Maybe they've not got a great support network around them. Maybe they're stuck in this wood and they're inside it. They can't see from a high contour view. They're not looking down at themselves. They're in amongst it. They've not really got many options. What would your advice be to them?
The only advice I'd give to keep it simple is just tell somebody.
Right.
Again, I should be getting royalties for old sayings here, but we talk about mental health is huge now, but the cavemen had poor mental health. They didn't know what to call it. A problem shared is a problem halved, is a cracker, and it's we've had all that get Britain talking, and there's no coincidence that them initiatives are there, because just to get something, and here's another one, get it off your chest. It's been proved, so almost scientifically, I think, hasn't it? That
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that 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 that, that just to share it improves your psyche, you know.
Part, I can't remember if I discussed this last time, but I used to be a facilitator of a men's suicide prevention group, all peer to peer support, stuff like that. And one of the biggest things, and I've said this so many times, one of the biggest things that I seen from that experience was that a lot of the time, yeah, it was about getting things off your chest, but getting things off your chest also alerted you to the fact that other people have got the same worries, same concerns. So just to know that you speak about something, yeah, there's going to be different nuances in the circumstances surrounding it, but the main issue, a lot of other people were dealing with the same issues, and it was like, fucking hell, I'm not on my own.
Mm,
I'm not on my own in the way I'm thinking about this. And for some people, it was one and done. They came to the group, found out that they wasn't the only person dealing with this issue, and that immediately made them feel, I'm not going through this on my own.
mm. That was
That
enough,
that
yeah.
was massive. That was a big eye opener for me. That, yeah.
Mm, yeah, that's it. And it can be as simple as that. And there will have been other people in that group who will still be accessing them groups.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And there'll be some people who maybe access them once a year and they just top themselves up, or there'll be people who've accessed that group and are now following your podcast. You don't even know who they are,
Yeah.
and
Potentially, yeah. Yeah.
that's keeping them on the straight and narrow. So, mate,
Yeah.
it's massive, but the internet, can be dangerous, but it can be very, very powerful as well. And that's why these podcasts, are unbelievable, because it's 24/7, isn't it?
I know.
So, somebody will listen to this and will watch this at 4 in the morning, in Hong Kong. I don't know.
Just before we go, mate, we never touched on why you don't like the word recreational. What is it about that?
I think because what it does is, it normalizes it, and it justifies it, and it puts it into a category that is deemed to be
Okay to
acceptable.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's recreational, right? Okay, yeah. But what effect is it having? Just
Hmm.
because it's a Saturday, because it's a Saturday, does that make it recreational? So if it's a Tuesday, is it still recreational? Because you're still going to pub, you're still watching the footy, but you've had a gram of cocaine and 10 pints of
Yeah.
Moretti. Is that recreational? So
Yeah.
you've got to be careful that it's not another word that we use, because we don't need any more help in normalizing it, because we only have to watch, like, I haven't mentioned this one, but I love this one. We watch the soap operas. The soaps are massive, aren't they?
Hmm.
So on a Monday, well, I don't know what nights they're on, because fortunately I don't watch them anymore. But if you're watching EastEnders, then you flick over to Coronation Street, and then you've recorded Emmerdale. I said this to you, I think, on the last podcast, and I don't care how many times I bore people saying this. When you're watching the soaps and you're 12 or you're 13, when they celebrate, where do they go?
Yeah. Whatever the main pub is in the village,
When someone dies, where do they go?
Yeah.
When they've had a bad day, where do they go? So you're sat there at 13 or 14 watching Emmerdale, and they're in the wool pack, and they're on the shots because somebody's just got a new job, and it's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, and you look over and your mum's got a large glass of red wine, and your dad's got a bottle of beer.
It's imprinting in it. It's saying that, yeah, this is
That's
socially
right.
acceptable to do. Yeah.
That's what people do. So when your
Yeah.
mates when your mates on a Friday night says, "We're gonna get, you're 12 or 13, we're gonna get a case of strong lager. Are you chipping in, like, to buy it?" And you go, well, yeah. Why wouldn't I? That's what you do.
Hmm. How hard is it, though, at that age for you to be strong willed enough? Because at the end of the day, at that age, all you want to do is fit in. You want to be part of a tribe, don't you? You want to be seen to be part of the group. You don't want to be exiled from the group of your peers. So how hard is it at that age? And obviously, there's no right answer for this at all. But to be strong-willed enough to say, listen, no, I'm not into that, knowing that you're going to be ridiculed, whether you're going to be all the kind of stuff that goes on in schools nowadays with young children. You know what I mean?
Very, very difficult, mate. Very, very difficult is the answer. Because don't forget, there's a lot of hormones flying around at that age. So your body's changing, your mind's changing. You want to fit in. You might have personal issues. Could be anything going on,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to fit into that category, and you don't want to be seen to be not in the in with
Yeah.
the in crowd. So if that means you're doing something that you're not necessarily comfortable with, you're going to do it because the people who you want to be seen with, that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a really good point. And then where does that lead to? Where does that lead to? Does that
Uh,
end up in 10 years' time being the person, in a situation that I found myself in, or does it end up being the person that finds themselves in some of the chaotic
yeah.
lifestyles
Yeah.
we have to see, on a regular basis, in the towns and cities where we live,
Mm-hmm.
Um, one thing's for certain, there's a better chance, isn't there?
Yeah, of
There's a
course,
better
mate.
chance if they're making them choices at 12, 13, 14, they're increasing the risk, aren't they? That's for certain.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Wow, we've covered some stuff there, mate.
I
That's
know. I mean, we could go on it. If we can sync it up, I'd love to do a part 3 as well, because there's other topics that, going back to that analogy at the beginning, what we used as the corridor. Whether you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I don't think I'm addicted to anything. I don't really abuse alcohol. I'm not into drugs. Your corridor could be something else. Maybe you're dealing with poverty as such. Maybe you're dealing with, like I said, a lot of stress at home, volatile relationships. These doors off the corridor could involve drugs, alcohol, poverty. So there's a whole other podcast topic there that I think I'd love to do a part 3 with you, Martin, if you're up for doing that.
definitely, mate. I could sit here and speak to you all day, but that's not a podcast. That's just me and you having a go. But
Yeah, yeah,
the great thing is, like, an hour's gone there, and you know we could carry on for another two or three,
yeah.
and I think I think the content's good. I think we've hit some really key issues there. And again, I think it's amazing that we're allowed to do this, and we can.
Mm-hmm.
You're technical enough and intelligent enough to get it
Well, I
out to
don't
the
know about
masses.
that. Like, if you compare that to the beginning of the podcast when I had all sorts of issues, I won't go that far.
But no, but it's always great to speak to you, Dave. And I just hope that people are willing to take a listen and maybe take something from it.
Hopefully, mate. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for your time this morning, Martin. Is there anything else before we go? Where can people find out more about Clear Futures and the stuff that you do?
Okay, so obviously, we're on the on website, clearfutures.org.uk, and obviously I'm doing a lot of work at the moment with Maximum Edge, so maximumedge.org.uk. Really excited about the stuff we've got going on with Dave and Katie over at Maximum Edge with the NHS, and I'm looking forward to being a big part in the future of Max Edge and what it's about.
Yeah. Thank you very much again for your time, Martin. I'll speak to you
Cheers, Dave.
soon.
Take care, pal.
Nice one.